Hello, welcome back to Reads of an Apple. My name is Stacy, and I'm here to start a new vlog. So it is currently Sunday, February 5th, and it's just before 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I've got a kitty by my feet meowing at me because she wants attention, but I am in the kitchen. I have some going brown bananas, so I am making banana bread. They started to turn yellow, and I prefer my bananas as green as possible, so I was like, I'll save them and I'll make banana bread. So I'm going to do 2 batches, a normal one and then one with chocolate chips, so I can gift that away because I know a lot of other people like chocolate in their banana bread. I'm not a big chocolate person, but I finished my audiobook earlier, so I wanted to pick up another audiobook. And if you have seen my February TBR, I have quite a few fantasy romance authors that I would like to try for FaRoFeb this year. And so I decided to do a dedicated vlog. Now I have 8 on a spinner wheel. Most of them I talked about in that TBR, but I will touch base on what I have on my spinner wheel, and then we will spin. Now, not all of these have an audiobook or an audiobook that is available to me without purchasing it, so I might have to respin until I get one that has an audiobook either via Kindle Unlimited or my library on Hoopla or Libby. But we have A Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. The audiobook and ebook are available to me via Libby. The Goblin King by Shona Husk. This is one I'd have to read physically, so I will skip that one. The Secret Goddess by M.J. Feraldo. This is also one I'd have to read via ebook, so we're skipping that one if we land it right now. To Wake a Kingdom by Nisha J. Tully. That one's available on KU. Also skipping that one if we get it. Daughter of No World by Carissa Broadbent. This is available on KU, but the audiobook is available on Hoopla. Between Wrath and Mercy by Jess Wisecup. This is available on KU, but I would be skipping it because the audiobook isn't available anywhere to me without purchasing it at this time. Savage City by L. Penelope. This is available as an audiobook on Hoopla. And then Song of the Forever Rains by E.J. Mello. This is available on KU as a read and listen. So, those are the current ebooks I have on there. There may be more added or taken away or whatever as we do this. I don't know how many books I plan on doing for this vlog. We'll see time-wise how long it goes. I do plan on reading most, if not all, of these books during the month of February, so I will try to read them no matter what. But, okay, I have the spinner wheel all set up, so let us see. And Between Wrath and Mercy. I really want to read this. So this will be... Here's what I'll do. When I am done with my current ebook, I will pick this up via ebook. So I'm going to hide the slice, but we'll try again because we want an audiobook. Okay, Children of Blood and Bone. Okay, perfect. So this is, I'm going to hide the slice. So this is by Tomi Adeyemi, so I will check that out via my Libby, and I'm going to start that while I start cooking banana bread, and it's already 4 o'clock, so I'll probably make dinner as well. I plan on making some dupe crunch wraps, and then I can assemble them every day before I go to work in the morning. But I'm going to get to cooking and start my new audiobook, and I will see you when I have an update. Hello. So it has been a couple days. It is currently Tuesday night, and I figured I'd do an update. So I have listened to Children of Blood and Bone for the last couple days. I didn't listen to it too much Sunday night. I just kind of listened to it while I was cooking and just got a couple hours into it. And then I was able to listen to it on and off for a few hours yesterday, but today I listened to it almost all day at work. So I am now 60% into the book. I'm about chapter 45, and I still have like, I think it's 6.5, 7.5, something crazy hours left. So it might still be a couple of days before I finish it. And I'm not sure how I am going to rate this so far. I'm kind of struggling on a couple things. But first off, I just want to mention that I picked this up via audiobook, like I mentioned in our opening clip, but the audiobook narrator and production value, she is, 6 stars to her. I am enjoying her voices. I'm enjoying the way that she's narrating. I can very easily tell when she's talking in different people's voices, which is even funnier because we've got like 4 main characters pretty much. And so I'm really enjoying her reading the book to me for sure. Now, where I am struggling with the book is I was going pretty good and I was enjoying it. I was liking where we're going. And then I feel like from like 30% to where I am now, and maybe even a little bit more, it just feels so dragged down and slow, and characters are making silly decisions, and I feel like we are supposed to be rooting for Zaylee. I hope I'm saying her name right. But I gotta say, I'm not a fan of her. I'm not the biggest fan of her. She is kind of rude to people, and I understand she has a lot of hurt and that we're dealing with a lot of like injustices and social commentary and things like that. But I'm very much a firm believer that, you catch more flies with honey. And I don't know, sometimes she says things or does things, and even when we're in her POV and we see that she's like instantly regretting it, or she's already like kicking herself or feeling guilty by something, she doesn't take those lessons that she's learning and apply it to the next situation. And there are a couple of times where I've been just like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Don't. So she's kind of frustrating me, but I'm a big fan of the princess, who is Amari. I'm really enjoying her character and the evolution of her character and the character growth that she's going through. I feel like maybe I'm enjoying it more because she has more growth to go through. Although I do kind of find it interesting. I feel like a lot of the times when we get the noble character or the aristocrat character or the higher class character, whatever you want to call it, and they are good friends with someone of the lower class that happens to be their servant or slave, but from their perspective, they see them as more as a friend or more as a family member, or from their end, they just don't see them as that position. I feel like when we do have a character in that like archetype at the beginning of the book, and they are very friendly with those beneath them, a lot of the times they are more aware of the situation that brought this person into their life, or the situation that they're kind of going through, that it's not all like rainbows and sunshine for them or other people in their situation. And while I feel like she understands this a little bit, she's still very naive about a lot of things and very surprised. And I understand that she does need that naivete to grow through, but I feel like she was almost a little too naive in the beginning, because it talks about the things that she's forced to learn by her mother and her father, and she's forced to learn how to train to spar and all of these different things. And, you know, she talks about being good friends and how her, I mean, really, she was her slave. But Binta was her best friend, her only friend, and she cared so much deeply for her, and they just had this very special connection, and I loved kind of seeing her reminisce about that connection. But I feel like with her not being a little, even just a little smidgen more aware of the situation that Binta and those of Binta's type and class and just situation, the fact that she wasn't more aware and wasn't even at least interested to learn more about how Binta got there. And maybe we're just not seeing this. So this is where I'm kind of like, I don't know if it's plot points that we're going to see later on in the series, because it's supposed to be a trilogy. From what I can tell, this is also Tomi's debut book, so it could just be like a debut author type thing. I swear, I'm perfectly fine the entire day, and as soon as I sit down to film a clip and turn on everything, my nose starts running. I don't know why. But so I was like slightly disappointed with that. But oh my gosh, when we got to I don't want to be too spoilery, but there's a scene where they join a competition, and it's basically, I think, gladiator competitions when they would flood the arena with water and do like fake pirate ship battle kind of things, except this is very real and a lot of people die. But they go on this, and it's really the first time she's really had to be in battle against other people, and she completely freezes. And the entire time I'm like, you can do it, Amari, you can do it, you can break out of your fear, and you can do it, and you can join the fight. And I know you really want to join the fight, and you're feeling guilty and while we're in the situation that you aren't doing more, but you just can't get past that fear. You haven't, like, she just can't get past it. And I was rooting for her, but I also kind of liked that she wasn't just like a kick-ass and take names kind of a character. So I don't know, I'm just really connecting with her, and I am intrigued. I don't know, and I feel like there's interesting, her brother, the crown prince, I think he's Inon, something like that. I feel I'm interested in him, but there were some interesting choices made with his character and things that his character has kind of been forced to do. And I feel like there's some weird choices, like, oh, we gotta get this extra layer of guilt on him, or oh, we have to add this extra layer of whatever on him. But it just kind of feels unnecessary at this point. So I feel like it's almost, we're adding in extra tragedy and extra strife to kind of like make a point, it feels like at times. So we'll see how it all kind of pans out. But, and then the other big main character is Zane, which is Zayle's older brother. And him and Amari are like one of my favorites. And there's kind of like hints that there might be a romance between them. And I kind of hope that there's a romance between them. But I feel like the main romance later on in the series, maybe probably not in this book, is going to be between Inon and Zayle. But we'll see what's going on. But I mean, as for like production value and the narrator, I'm really enjoying her reading the book to me. I'm just kind of having some issues with the actual story itself outside of what the audiobook is giving me. And I have some kind of questions about, I don't know, the magic system and how exactly that it's working. And I know that technically magic is dead and they're trying to bring magic back into the world. But there's something weird going on where I'm like, there's gotta be something more. And she's somehow getting magic back, but it's not, I don't understand how sometimes she can have a lot of power and sometimes she can't. And then there was this blood magic brought in, and I just feel like as a reader, we're only getting pieces of the story, but the characters know the entire story. Like, Zayla is using a lot of what she learned from her mother about her magical abilities. And yes, she didn't learn everything because her mother died when she was super young, but us as the reader are being kept what Zayla does know. Is like almost being kept hidden from us at times, so then it can be revealed later. But I more enjoy it when the reader and the character is surprised about a new facet of their magic, or learning to control this new facet of their magic or something like that. So I don't know. I'm just kind of, and this may be like debut book things or something like that. And like I said, it's getting kind of long. I mean, we're basically on a big quest thing where they got to collect these 3 different artifacts, although they have the first one, and then they got to get to a special temple, and then that temple's attacked, so now they got to head somewhere else after finding a 3rd artifact, and and then they keep getting captured or waylaid and all these different things. So I'm just like, it's very much quest-based, but I feel like sometimes there's times spent on too much of the situations that aren't actually moving our characters forward in their actual quest progression. And so they just kind of get stuck in a small town or in an area. And while it's nice to kind of see them just starting to get along and connect with each other and kind of work through whatever differences or issues are going on between them, then after we get that little bit of like character growth and camaraderie set up between everybody, then we're still kind of stuck in that area without any real momentum forward. And so I don't know. Right now it's sitting at like a 3-star, maybe 3.5, 4-star, if nothing else, because the audiobook narration is so good. And I know I keep saying that, but she is just phenomenal. But I'm interested to kind of see how we're moving forward. And another interesting thing, which I want to look up some reviews, and specifically reviews by people who understand the culture a little bit more, but I feel like this was kind of marketed and talked about, and not that I've seen marketing for it because it's an older book, but the people that I've heard kind of talk about it that put it on my radar mentioned like high fantasy and things like that. But it doesn't feel, I don't know, like the world building feels like I should know these places already, and they're just fantasy twists on existing places. Now, there probably is a map, maybe in the ebook or the hard book, so maybe I'll try to find the author's website and see if there's like a map listed or something like that. But I was expecting, and some of the descriptions sound like they're supposed to be more of a high fantasy element, but with the world building that's happening, it's not quite giving me what I want or what I need from world building aspects. And it feels almost like these are already places that exist that are getting a fantasy twist on them. So I don't know. And so I want to look up some reviews, but I want to wait till I'm done with the book, and then I can kind of reassess my thoughts and go from there, because I don't want to lean too hard against something if I'm taking it wrong or if it's coming across wrong to me, because I am reading it via audiobook. So there might need to be some research or some extra looking into things about the book and the storyline and things like that after I finish it to really properly assess how I feel about it, if that makes sense. But I mean, the audiobook is fantastic. So I know I keep saying it, but the audiobook is great, and I'm intrigued. I'm kind of intrigued to see where it goes. I was kind of angry with Zayla and Iman when we got to a certain thing, because I'm just like, oh my gosh. And then something happens where I don't want to get too spoilery, but basically Zayla and Iman get distracted by trying to fight each other. And because he's hunting her and his sister as the crown prince, because he's kind of been told different things and there's a misunderstanding of what actually is kind of happening, although he kind of knows the truth from his father, but kind of not knowing the full truth. And he's definitely having his eyes open to the real situation of the world. But what ends up happening is Zayle's lion creature and Zane and Amari end up getting captured. And I'm not very far into this situation, but it's talking about, because we switched to those guys' POV when this is happening, and I'm like, they're screaming and they're begging for help and there's all these things going on, and I'm like, where the hell are Zayle and Inan? They're supposed to be right there fighting in front of them. How are they so completely wrapped up? Like, they're on like a beach riverbank area. Like, they shouldn't be that far away from them, because they were all watching, like, they were watching them fight, and then they were kidnapped. And I'm like, I don't understand how all of a sudden they're gone, and Zayle and Inan are freaking out. And I'm like, you should have been right there. And yes, you weren't paying attention, but you should have heard the distress sounds, because her lion was like roaring and calling out for help and then whimpering. And I'm like, if you're this connected with your lion, you would know. And if you're such great warriors, both of you, you would have felt like a disturbance in the force, so to speak, that there were other people there. And then when we first see the people that actually took them, when we're in Amari's POV after the fact, what they're saying doesn't make sense about why they would be taking them. And maybe that's intentional. I'm not fully through the situation yet. But I'm like, this doesn't make sense about why these people would kidnap them. Like, and one of them's talking about how they're gonna get away, and oh, they're there to hunt us down. And it's like, they weren't there to hunt you. How do you know they were there to hunt you down? You saw people traveling, they stopped to play in the riverbank, and then you decided to attack them. Like, they weren't looking in the forest for you. They weren't obviously looking for something. They were just kind of traveling and meandering on, keeping to themselves. I mean, you can tell when someone is looking for something, or looking for clues or things like that, or just, walking down a sidewalk, going for a walk, So, I don't know. There's some interesting situations that I feel like our characters are kind of being forced to put in situations to make certain things happen, but there would have been a more logical choice for our characters to reach that same conclusion, if that makes sense. But like I said, we'll see. We'll keep going. Hopefully I can finish through most of it tomorrow at work, and then maybe finish it on Thursday, but we will see. I totally did not realize this audiobook was so long, but that is okay. So, it's a very long update, a little bit more than I wanted to go into, but I got a little ranty. But like I said, we'll see. I probably won't update you until I finish the book, just because I'm still kind of up in the air about so many things. But yeah, I will see you once I have finished Children of Blood and Bone. Hello. Happy Friday. I have an update. I have finally finished Children of Blood and Bone. I ended up, instead of doing some ebook or physical reading last night, I ended up just listening to as much of the audiobook as I could. And then this morning when I went to work, I only had like 3.5 hours left. So that was just pretty perfect timing. I only had about 45 minutes left of work, and the book was done. So I decided to give it 3.5 stars, but I did round up to 4 stars on Goodreads. I almost said Instagram, but that's weird. I've really kind of struggled with some of the decisions and some of the plots, especially as we get closer to the end. And I kind of got a little ranty in my last clip. And the similar type of things happens. Like, once they figure out, I don't know, it just, some of it felt like unnecessarily putting characters through something. Like, I mean, obviously spoilers. If you're this far, you already know I go into spoilers. So feel free to skip ahead when the cover is down. But I just... people think they're lying, and if they're supposed to be able to tell the truth, why does anytime somebody's getting tortured, they just assume that they're lying and immediately go to torturing them? And these are supposed to be the good guys, so it's like reactivated magi who had the scroll before the king's people took the scroll back, and so they have their magic. And then Inan and... oh my gosh. Okay, what are we doing? Zele are like attacking these people and they're fighting them. And I'm like, these are your people. Like, these, like, you're all on the same side. So it was weird that they attacked them in the first place, this other group of magi. And then I thought it was weird that the magi started torturing poor Amari and Zane. I mean, I guess it was necessary to get Zele and Inan working together, but there could have been a better way. There could have been a more logical way without all of this extra unnecessary strife added to the people. And then instead of just healing up and then leaving the next day because they are on a deadline to get to wherever they need to get to by whatever solstice, I think it's the summer solstice, they're like, no, let's wait a day and let's do this big whole party celebration. And I'm like, your quest is not done. It is not time to celebrate. And so then they're wasting time at this celebration. And I mean, the celebration itself was cool because you get to see like the traditional way that the Magi celebrated events and things like that. So it was like interesting stuff, but it just felt out of place in the plot. And like, not like, if they're so stressed about getting to the place on time and getting the artifacts and like making sure everybody's there and moving forward. And then it was just like the characters, like, if this is their goal, this is their number one goal, this is their life goal, they have been tasked by the gods pretty much to do this. Why is there any time they have a chance to take more time than necessary before moving on in their quest, do they take that? It's one thing, like at the beginning of this, when they're traveling and they stop at the river to wash and then they start playing a little bit, and like, that's one thing because you're still on the road, so I don't know. And then I felt some of the situations that were introduced about the strife inside Inan, about whether he wants to help them bring back magic or not help them bring back magic, because he sees the other side of what it is like to be someone who does not have that power, or sees the magnitude of destruction that someone with magic powers can bring. And that's not everybody, but it could happen. And so I don't know, I really kind of struggled. And then of course the king's people attacks the celebration, and Zele gets kidnapped and horrendously tortured. And plus, at this whole celebration thing, Zele and Inan start kissing and like making out and like kind of getting somewhat serious, and it felt weird to me. Like, it felt like they were feeling deeper than the situation kind of warranted. And I get that he kind of was like hate crushing on her, but we didn't see that from her side either. And it could have just been the adrenaline from the battles and all these other things, But the way that she was talking about him was that she was like really falling for him, but you didn't see any evidence of her falling for him outside of she thinks he's cute. So it felt more lusty on her side. And then we had to add in the strife on top of everything else. So now she is never gonna trust him again. And I'm like, can you see where he's coming from as well? He is coming around and seeing the horrible things that his father is doing in the name of duty, and he's having to rearrange his worldview, but maybe yours isn't 100% what the worldview is either. That you are biased as a magi, so you don't see how people without magical powers could be terrified, especially if someone, like we meet the guy at the celebration, who has fire powers and basically helps people escape by using blood magic and imploding himself in a giant fireball and destroying the entire encampment and a lot of the guards. Like, do you not understand how that could be terrifying for somebody who does not have a way? Where, yeah, he's a good guy, but there was no like understanding from her side of how someone could be absolutely terrified and worried about if someone with those types of power is going to like go rogue or be the one of a million that is not a good person. How am I supposed to protect myself against that? So I feel like there's definitely needs to be kind of a balance there, but instead it just, I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of Zele. I wasn't a big fan, like, I'm kind of, like, I understand Anon made some silly choices, but I'm more lenient towards him for some reason. Amari, though, I am team Amari. Her arc, her finishing chapter, Amari is my queen. I will bow down to Amari and no one else. She was just seeing her grow, and when she was called the Lionaire when they were in the like gladiator ship battle place, and she just felt like that's not who she really is, and she didn't understand how these people could see her as that. And then she really kind of takes on that mantle during the final big battle, and she's like, no, I am a Lionaire. I have the Lionaire inside of me. That's not all that I am, but I can be a Lionaire at times. And we're already getting spoilery. So her killing her father, oh, it was such, Amari is what kept this book at a rounded up to a 4-star. I mean, if it was just Zele's story, I probably would have given it a 2. I didn't really connect with her. She constantly made bad decisions, and then she would like beat up on herself for taking advantage of her brother or the other people around her, but then she wouldn't actually use those reflections and that guilt to change the choices that she kept, like she continued to make the same wrong, bad, guilt-ridden choices. And I was just like, you need to actually learn from your mistakes. And maybe that's part of the YA, but I don't know. I struggled with her, and there were times I struggled with Anon, and then it definitely got way more grotesque and graphic with the torture scene, especially with her at the end, than I was expecting, because even though things were talked about and very horrible and horrendous things are talked about during the book, we don't quite see something that horrendous and like from the perspective of somebody watching it and somebody experiencing it. And it was just a little unexpected about suddenly how graphic it got. So I felt like that felt a little like, and trying to manipulate the reader to feel something more for Zele, or I don't know, it just felt weird to me. But yeah, Amari Amari. Let's just talk about Amari. As for some of the questions that I was kind of having before about the world building, I looked at a couple of really extensive reviews by people who are either Nigerian descent or a part of the West African, I think it was West African cultures. And this is definitely more urban fantasy because they were saying a lot of these places are actual places over there. And I was feeling kind of weird with the world building, and a lot of these people were like, yeah, no, this wasn't the greatest world building because it was relying too much on already created cities. And it was just kind of interesting to kind of read between those for reviews of not just white readers, but just readers who don't know much about that area or that culture, and how the non-Nigerian people, I guess, were more just like, oh, it's so amazing, this is so cool, look at all these things. But the people actually in that culture were like, yeah, no, this isn't really the best example of this culture. So it was kind of interesting to get that, and that's why I wanted to read those reviews, because I didn't know if I was feeling something funky or if I was just feeling something off in the world building, and so I wasn't really connecting with it how I expected. I don't know why my light's just suddenly like vibrating over here. So that kind of helped explain why I felt like things were a little bit off, is because these are real places, and this is a fantastical world that is based in the real world, just with magic. So it definitely is not high fantasy like I was expecting it to be. It's very much closer to urban fantasy or fantasy set in our world or alternate world kind of a situation. So that was also, and then it was also very predictable in some of the events, and some of them, like I mentioned before, just kind of felt unnecessary. Like, there are other ways to have characters, have to really kind of deal with their moral choices and figuring out what side they want to be with in this big war. And there are other ways to do that than the ways that it happened. Like, it just kind of felt kind of basic plot choices. Not that basic can be bad, but it just, I don't know. I feel like the ideas and the lushness of the culture and was just so elevated, and some of the characters were so elevated that like some things just fell flat, and so it just kind of felt disjointed to me at times. Or, okay, yeah, I bet, yeah, now he's gonna try to rescue her, and they're gonna try to rescue them, and she's gonna hate him now, even though he's trying to save her because she can't see past her own whatever. And so it just, I was like knowing what was gonna happen without like overall basic plot ideas. And then I have no idea if Anand's alive or dead. So I don't know what's going on there. And then after all this, magic is being brought back into the world, and Zayla is trying to stay dead, and because she wants to be with her mom. And as someone who lost their mom at a young age, not nowhere near as horrendous as something like she experienced, but I don't know. It just felt odd to me, but I don't know. It's hard to say because everybody experiences grief differently. But I just thought it was weird that, she has these friends. She has her brother. She's, kind of been tasked with bringing magic back into the world and being a voice for the gods or something like that. And she just wants to die and be with her dead parents. And her mom was just like, no, and then like faded away into nothing or whatever, or went back into whatever afterlife existence there is. And then she was kind of just left in limbo, and then we cut to her waking up. So I'm just like, I would have liked it more had she chosen, okay, you're right, yes, I need to stay alive, I need to not basically allow my body to die and join you in the afterlife, I do have more work I need to do. Instead, it felt just kind of like she was left no choice to be alive. So I don't know, it just felt weird to me, the whole like situation. So we'll see. I may or may not pick up the second book, and apparently there's supposed to be a third book at some point, but it's not released yet. So we will see. Maybe I'll wait and try to get some reviews. I was kind of looking at the reviews that I was looking at, and then looked kind of briefly at their reviews of the second book, and they were kind of mixed. Some of them thought like the overall plotting and writing and laying out of the story improved a lot, and the representation of the culture improved a lot, and the magic system was explained a lot better, but that there were other elements that started to lack. So I don't know. We'll see. At some point, I probably may or may not read it, but it's not high on my list. But I definitely won't. Like, I'm planning, it's not that I'm planning to never pick it up or anything like that. It's just not a priority for me at this time, because it wasn't like blowing me away. So yeah, there's that. Because I got a little ranty, this vlog is already going to be long, but we will see what happens. So because I finished that today at work, I actually filmed me spinning my spinner wheel, and I did have to spin it a couple of times, so I will pop that in here, and then you can see that. Okay, so the next audiobook I will be picking up is Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. The first book of this is available on Hoopla via audio, but I know the full, I think it's a trilogy, books are also available on KU. And I'm very, very excited. It's kind of making the rounds on BookTube and Bookstagram right now, but I saw Jessen and Crystal, Jessen from Jessen Reads Romance and Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life, both loving it, so I'm definitely being influenced by them, and I'm excited to try it. I don't know if I'm going to try to maybe read the first couple chapters via KU, and then once I kind of get things arranged in my brain, then jump into the audiobook, but I might just start the audiobook because I do have some more kind of projects I want to work on this weekend. It is Super Bowl weekend. So yeah, we will see, but I will update you once I have made some progress on that. Hopefully I will be able to start it later tonight, but yeah, so far we have only finished one book, but it was over 500 pages. So, and this one, I don't even know how long this one is. It's also over 500 pages, and I saw the audiobook was like 15 hours, but it seemed like everybody really loves this one, and it will be, I think, a quicker read, and I'll fly through it a lot more. So we shall see, but I will give you updates when I have more to say about that. See you soon. Hello. Happy Sunday. Happy Super Bowl Sunday. It is just after 9 o'clock. So Super Bowl is over. Chiefs won. Woohoo. I'm not a Chiefs fan. I'm from Colorado, so I'm a Broncos fan, and Chiefs are one of our big rivals, so I didn't want them to win, but I didn't really care if the Eagles won it or not, so it is what it is. There weren't any commercials that really spoke out to me, and Rihanna's Super Bowl show was fun. I was a little surprised she didn't dance more. I thought she was a big dancer, but she's been like gone doing life stuff for so long. I don't even remember. But I thought it was one of, at least music-wise, one of the better shows. And Chris Stapleton doing the national anthem. I mean, Chris Stapleton should be just doing the national anthems for everybody, everywhere, at least in America. I love Chris Stapleton, so I thought he did an excellent job. But anyway, this isn't a normal weekly vlog. This is just specifically FaRoFeb weekly vlog, but I just can't help myself. So, I have updates. A lot of things happened yesterday, on Saturday, but I'm going to go into my normal weekly vlog. So, check out the beginning of week 7 if you'd like to know more about the stressful day that was yesterday. But I did start last night. Maybe I started it earlier in the day. No, I started it last night after the Avalanche game. And then I was up till like 2 o'clock in the morning. But I started Daughter of No Worlds. I am about 60%. I'm on chapter 40 in the audiobook. And it has just over 6 hours left. So I am enjoying it. It is definitely a slow burn, a slow build. But I'm just enjoying myself. I was trying to temper expectations, but I knew a lot of people I trust, more specifically Jessin from Jessin Reads Romance and Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life, like gave this book like 6 stars or 5 stars or whatever. So I knew it would give me what I want from a fantasy romance. But I was still just like, there's some fantasies that I really love that other people don't like as much. So I was still kind of slightly timid going into it, and I'm just having so much fun. I was cleaning and doing things and trying to take care of projects yesterday, and there were several times where I found myself just stopping and listening to the audiobook. And because I was up so late last night, I didn't go to bed till after 2 o'clock, and at like 1:30ish I got hungry and so I just made a couple scrambled eggs and a piece of toast. And usually when I sit down and eat, I put on something on YouTube, or if I have a show to watch, I'll do like a Below Deck and Married at First Sight are like the only 2 TV shows I watch right now that aren't replays of older shows like Psych. I'm doing a Psych rewatch and things like that. But anyway, I didn't put anything on. No YouTube, no nothing. I just let the audiobook play. And then I was like, okay, maybe after the audiobook and after I eat, I'll sit and I'll read physically for a little bit. And I was like, no, I just want to listen to audiobooks. So I played on my phone until it was dead. Because, I mean, when I sat down, it was only like 20% anyway. So it's not like it had much to go. But I just played on my phone. And then I just kind of sat there and cuddled the kitty once my phone died and just listened to the audiobook. So I am really enjoying it. It is very immersive, and I am just enjoying her learning how to use her magic properly, like in being trained. But okay, basic premise here. I'm just talking about how I'm loving it, but let me actually tell you about the book if you have not heard about it. So our heroine, I have it pulled up on my iPad here because some of the names are odd, so I wanted to make sure I got them right. So Tisana is our heroine and our main lead character, and she the prologue was really heartbreaking. She is it doesn't say here, she is a specific race. It starts with a T. Um, I don't know. I don't see it in the blurb. But so the race that she has are known for magic. But as you can kind of tell from the cover, I don't know if you can tell with it being small, but she has the splotchy skin, but instead of the splotches being lack of pigment, there is pigment. So her splotches are tan and she has one green eye. And so she's known as fragmented, which means she's not pure in her magic and her look and just the kind of way that she does things. And she ends up offering herself, instead of going to the mines to be a slave there and die pretty quickly, she shows off that she has some magic, and she convinces some guy to take her as a slave, and she ends up getting bought by someone, and she has been a slave for 8 years. So that's the prologue, is her as a child. Then we jump into 8 years later, and she is a performer. She dances, but it's funny because she's like, I don't know how to dance. I just used brute force and memorized like the steps. And so I can do them, but I can do them to any music because it's just all counting in my head. And she does magic for like butterflies and things. So she has been collecting gold for the past 8 years, and finally has 1,002 pieces of gold. And she was told that to buy her freedom, she needed 1,000. So she goes to buy her freedom from her slaver, and a situation happens where she is kind of forced to run for her life or be dead. And so she has a friend who helps her escape, and she makes her way to the orders. And it sounds like the orders are like houses of magic. Like if you have magic, you go there to train and you become an apprentice, and you have like trials and different tests to like move to different levels. And so she had met someone from the orders who had traveled and visited her, or stayed at her master's estate. And so she'd met him several times, and he'd always said, if you're free, or if you need somewhere to go or something like that, you can come to the orders and just ask for me. And she does. She has a severe infection from her wounds, and she's taken in, and she is like a month too late to get assigned to be an apprentice for somebody. So all of the like teachers who were willing to take an apprentice at this time are taken up. And so she ends up getting paired with Max Antarius, and he is semi-retired. He just hasn't gotten the like stamps or seals or whatever removed, but he still is part of the order. But it's just kind of a verbal agreement that he is retired. But he's basically forced to become her teacher and have her apprentice from him. And she's like older than, she's 21, and so she's older than most of the people who are apprentices. And so she's trying to get on the fast track because she wants to go back and she wants to save her friend, and she wants to save the other slaves. And she doesn't like, she wants the order to kind of use their magic users and come free people who, because slavery is wrong. So we've got that going on. There's some interesting stuff going on with the queen of the area where the order's in, or the queen of the order, or something like that. She is a child, but she's like ruthless, and I feel like she's gonna get some comeuppance coming to her too, but we'll see. This is a trilogy. And I'm pretty sure that the romance is going to be between Tasana and Max. But it's kind of slow burn. But it was kind of grumpy friends, He's very grumpy, didn't want to deal with people. He hates having people around. And so they're kind of grumpy to friends. And now they're starting to build a physical chemistry on top of that, or at least they're starting to acknowledge it and have it be a forethought in both of their minds. And I'm just really enjoying myself. There's been a couple almost kissed, and then they danced together, and it was all swoony, and I am loving this. And it is, like I said, super slow burn to the max, but it is just giving me all of the like cozy fantasy vibes, and I'm just happy to live in this world. And I wish that the other two books had audiobooks, so I'll have to see if the other audiobooks are even published at this point. This book only came out back in 2021, so it's still pretty new for a book. And what's really cool is Carissa Broadbent is kind of starting to blow up and get super popular for fantasy readers, but I guess it's one of her newer series that's really kind of starting everyone talking about her on like Bookstagram and Book Talk and stuff based on what she's saying, because I followed her on Instagram, of course. But the people that I follow are talking about this older series. But she did also say that because so much popularity is coming to her newer series, that more people are picking up her older series because they're going back to see what else she has because they're waiting for the next book, kind of a thing. But I guess she's pregnant, and so there's a book that either just came out or it comes out soon. And she wrote this like really long thing where she was like, there is going to be a bigger time between releases between the next couple books because I'm due around the time that the second book is supposed to come out. But she was like, but I'm hoping that I will be able to get a lot of pre-planning done for book 3 when it comes to it. But she is going to take some maternity leave and just kind of focus on life with her baby when it's born. So I'm very excited for her for that. And yeah, so I'm just diving deep down the Carissa Broadbent rabbit hole. And yeah, I don't know if I will update again before I finish it. I mean, if it's anything like yesterday and today, I just won't be able to stop listening to it. So we'll see what happens. But I will let you know either way. But yeah, this is already a super long clip, so I will come back and talk at you when I have finished Daughter of No Worlds. Hello, happy Valentine's Day, happy Love Day. I am here with an update. Last night, I finished the audiobook for Daughter of No Worlds. I gave it 5 stars. I loved this book. I loved the slow burn build and just things started twisting and changing. And I know that there's a couple of people who are reading the second book right now, and they're talking about the like twists and turns and the mind-blowing things that are happening in the second book. And I'm like, I have other books on my TBR I need to get to before I get to the rest of this trilogy, but this is definitely high priority once I get through my planned TBR books. But I love this, and I just like I found myself trying to guess what was going to happen, but then things were going completely different ways, and so I've tried to keep myself from guessing at all on what's going to happen. I'm just going with the flow, going along for the ride, trying to have like not expectations, but just zero ideas on where I think this is going. And so it's a little hard to do that because I am very much I wonder where this is going kind of a thing. But I'm just trying my hardest to just go with it because oh my gosh. So obviously, spoilers, if you're here, I've been spoilery this entire time. So I'm not going to worry about putting up a spoiler tag at this point. But wow, the fact that she gets this other magical creature-ish. I'm still kind of confused because it sounds like the magic had a personality of its own, but then with what happened at the end where she just assimilates the magic, it seems like, into herself. And so it's sentient, but maybe it's not its own being, or maybe it used to be its own being, and now this is just bits and pieces. I mean, I did get a little frustrated with this magic and how quick it was to judge harshly or negatively, but it's also based on its past experiences, and I thought it was kind of interesting and how she's getting, and then we find out that this used to be inside of Max. Oh my God. And the contract that she puts together to save Max and everyone else that she loves. And I just was like, she's coming in with a plan. And I love it. And there was some line that somebody says in it that I was doing dishes last night. And I just remember like stopping and being like, yes. And it was, I don't have the exact quote, but it was something along the lines of men want power to be powerful. Women want power to do things. And I was like, yeah. And I don't know. I really, really enjoyed it. And then we had like some training montages going on, and I love her sword. And I thought it was so cool, the naming of the sword and how it means both of no worlds and of all worlds. And I was like, that's so cool. And and then they really kind of start escalating their romance, and that was super cute. And they are just completely falling for each other. They're not saying it out loud, and then that final like battle scene, the crazy bonkers, the stuff that happens there, I am just like, oh my gosh. And I really want to pick up the second book. I really, really want to pick up the second book right away. But I have other things I need to do, and I have other things I need to read that I committed to. And there's... so I need to try to finish working in a couple of book club books, plus other things that are going on. Anyway, thank you for watching me ramble on once again. And this isn't the end of the video, so I don't know why I'm trying to wrap up this video, but yeah, I will see you all when I see you and have another update. So hopefully it's not too far away. I'll see you soon. Hello, long time no see. It is March 5th, Sunday, March 5th, and it is technically no longer February, so it's technically no longer FaRoFeb. But I told myself I wanted 3 books for this reading vlog. So yeah, I ended up picking up an audiobook. So I guess this is new to me, author audiobooks. But anyway, so what I picked up was Song of the Forever Rains by E.J. Mello. This is the first book in her Musai series. And this is available on Kindle Unlimited as a read and listen, which is great. I meant to update you when I was like 50-ish% of the way in, maybe 30 to 50-ish%. But I am officially at 71% because if you have not seen any of my other videos and you see the giant mess of boxes behind me, last weekend, the final weekend in February, I finally cleaned out my mom's storage unit. And yeah, I couldn't really continue paying for it because they used to be privately owned, and then they got bought out by a larger company, and so their prices like doubled. Plus, with having my own place and having the space, it just kind of felt like it was time. So, I went through 20 boxes today and listened to the audiobook and was completely surprised that I am now 71% of the way through it. So, I wanted to kind of chat with you about this. One of the reasons I picked this up is because for one of the other year-long reading challenges I was doing, one of the prompts I have is something based around music, and specifically our heroine and her two sisters who in their, like, I don't quite know if it's a different realm or dimension, or if it's just like a hidden underground city type situation, but there's like the magic users and then everyone normal. And her family is a Jabari family, and they're actually her father's like a count or somebody titled, so she is like a lady of well means. But they also have magic, and her sisters are known as the Musai, and they give performances, and all of their magic is based around like music. And I was really, really intrigued. This is called a YA, but I feel like she's 19 in this. Like, when we meet her, it's her 19th birthday. And with kind of the fantasy setting, she definitely feels a lot older than 19. So I would say this is more like new adult than young adult. But I'm enjoying this. But so what the story is about is when they turn 19, there's a special term for it, but the name escapes me because I haven't been physically reading it with my eyeballs. But they basically get tasked on a solo mission to kind of like prove to themselves and to those around them the metal, and it's just like a passage of rites, basically, for people who have magic and just in their society. And so her mission she's tasked with is to go to a different town, continent, maybe it's a city called Lachlan. And she is going to be courted by the old Duke who is there. And she is tasked with this because the Duke shows signs of being a euphoria user. And euphoria is basically a drug. And it's when magic is pulled from creatures who are like blessed with magic naturally. And it's like siphoned down. And then there are like normal humans, I guess would be the way to say it. When they take this euphoria, they gain magical powers, but it's very addictive and it destroys their bodies because their bodies aren't made to handle magic. And so he shows heavy signs of being a euphoria user. However, in their underground city that has its own name, the way that they handle euphoria is it does not leave the city. If you really want to use euphoria, you come to the city, you get it done in the city, and then you can leave. However, they've never seen him in the city before, which means he's getting euphoria a different way, which means that somebody somehow is leaking euphoria, leaking information about euphoria and how to collect it and distill it and all this stuff, and is basically betraying the magic coalition, I guess. I don't know if they have like a special name or anything, but just magic users in general. But like normal people know about magic, but because there can be issues with the drug and different things like that, they do, a lot of magic users tend to hide if they are a magic user. And when they're in this city, this underground city, most people wear a mask. Even if you know who the other person is, they always wear a mask. But so our hero of the book is the stepson of the Duke, Darius, and he is in town for the ball to celebrate Lakira. I don't think I've said her name this entire time. I think her name is Lakira, but let me just double check. I know it's Lakira. Lakira. I don't think the R is a hard R, so I think it's Lakira. But so she actually runs into Darius, and it's super cute. Before we find out like who she is, but his mother got sick and died, and somehow the title that was his father's passed to his stepfather, and who is now the Duke, but technically Darius should be the Duke. But his stepfather is a horrible person. He's putting taxes, all of these horrendous taxes on their people. Their people aren't able to kind of survive. And Darius doesn't really understand where this money is going. So he's kind of got some sneaky Robin Hood stuff where he's selling things that his stepfather didn't know were valuable in the house. And he's kind of hidden away some of his family's wealth, and he's got like basic food stuff like beans and rice and stuff that he takes out to his constituents and the people that live in their realm to try to help them survive under his stepfather's reign. And when they went to this big celebration, he also managed to have a secret meeting with the King of Thieves, who is also, so he's the king of the underground magic city, but he's also our heroine and her sister's real father. So we've got some like double duty kind of stuff going on. But he wanted help in dealing with his father and kind of liberating his country and his people. But he doesn't know what's going on with his father, his stepfather. He just knows something is going on, and he is absolutely terrified of this man. So, but Lakira doesn't quite know that, and he doesn't. So they're kind of got things hiding from each other. But she kind of had a tete-a-tete with him, and of course Darius is very sad that she's coming to the castle because he doesn't know that she was tasked by the King of Thieves, and he's like been the only girl that he's been interested in as a potential wife or girlfriend or something. And of course his stepfather sees that, and then now he's trying to court her. And I'm thinking he had something to do with his mother's death. He may or may not have something to do with his father's death, because he's just that creepy villain dude, you know? But I'm enjoying this. It's a lot of fun, and Darius is breaking my heart. We see that he kind of has some scars. And then when Lakira finally sees them, they are horrendous. But there was a really tough scene to listen to, and I'm sure read, where she really kind of sees, like, she could tell the dynamic's not really there between them in a good way. And they're sitting down and eating food. I can't remember if like it's a lunch or a dinner or something. And Darius mentions like, oh, I can't eat the soup or whatever. And his stepfather's like, what do you mean? I told the chef to specifically make this soup. What do you mean you can't eat this soup? You need to eat the soup. And then he's like, if you remember, I'm allergic to whatever the main ingredient in this soup is. And then, because Lakira is magical, she's able to basically fight the compulsion off that this Duke does, but he basically like makes it so nobody can remember or really sees what's going on, but he compels Darius to eat the soup that he's allergic to. And then when everyone comes out of it, the Duke is just like, oh my gosh, why were you eating the soup? Don't you know you're allergic to it? But Lakira sees it all. She knows. Oh, and my heart broke for Darius, because then she goes and checks on him, and he's just like, his little allergy medicine bottle is empty, and he's still just like inflamed and hurting, and he's unconscious, and she ends up using her magic to heal him, and then she sees the scars, which she had kind of seen hints before, and then this really broke my heart, because at another situation we see them at dinner, and he says something that rubs the stepfather the wrong way, and the stepfather takes out a knife that he usually has on him, a silver knife, and he gives it to Dorian, and he compels Dorian to cut himself. And so all of this has been self-inflicted, but because the stepfather is using magic to make him do this to himself and then not remember how it happens. Every time he wakes up from this like fugue state almost, and he's cut and bleeding, and he's covered in scars. And Lakira heals most of the scars and gets rid of them, and she heals them on his face, and then they finally kind of open up to each other. Oh, and her, when the cuts on the face thing happens later, and when she sees it, she has to tamp down so hard on her magic from lashing out, because she still hasn't figured out how he's getting the euphoria. Another interesting thing that is ever since the Duke came into this city, Lachlan, and it's also like a little island, I guess, or at least where the palace area is on an island. But it's like constantly raining, and they joke about the rainy season. And then Lakira finds out the rainy season has been years long. And the only time where the rain kind of lets up is when the Duke leaves for whatever shady reason, and he's not in the city, and he's out doing whatever. But everyone can always tell when he's back, because it starts raining again. And so I'm like, I don't know how it's gonna happen. I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm ready for this Duke to die a horrendous death. I don't know. My heart though, Darius. Oh, one thing that I'm really loving is that he is strong, and like he can handle himself in a fight, but he's not like a warrior. He kind of reminds me a little bit of like Yevon from the Gathering Dragons series, but he is maybe more like Dorian, where he has a strength, and he does know basics on how to fight and things like that. But he's not like Kale, where he's like a warrior. And yes, I'm bringing Throne of Glass into this, but he doesn't have magic. But he's like that type of character where he is strong and brave and a fighter, but he's fighting for his people, and he's not like a warrior, like archetype. And that is more Lakira. And so I'm enjoying this like slightly softer take on a fantasy hero, and I don't know, I'm enjoying myself so much. I'm loving that her magic is all about music, and yeah, I'm loving it. And yeah, I'm sure there's more I can say, because like I said, I've read 70% of it, but if you haven't read this book, if you haven't heard of E.J. Mello, I definitely recommend it if you enjoy fantasy, because I mean, it will break your heart what's going on with Darius, but I'm really enjoying this so much. I may or may not stay up super late tonight to finish it, because I'm listening it at like 1.3% right now, and it says I only have a couple hours left, but it's already almost 11 o'clock, so maybe I'll finish it tomorrow, but then I can count it for the Romance Takeover readathon. But anyway, I'm really enjoying this, and I'm excited to read this Two Sisters books. I think all 3 are out, and I'm excited to have another new to me author, and I'm glad that this one is hitting it out of the park so far. I mean, right now I'm probably sitting at a 4.5 stars, maybe 5. I'm kind of waiting to kind of see how these wrap up, and I'm sure, and I don't know how much is going to be pulled from the plot line that we're going through right now into the future books, or if they'll be like, it won't be like a big overarching story. It'll just be focused on the 3 sisters. So I'm excited to see kind of where this is gonna go. But yeah, I'll stop blabbering at you because I know this video is already pretty long. So I'm finally reading my 3rd new to you fantasy author, and I am loving it. So I think this will be a 2 out of 3, which will be great. But I will let you know when I have finished and be back to update you. Hello. And she says hello. Hi. I have an update. So yesterday at work, I finished Song of the Forever Rains. And I'm going to give it 5 stars. I really enjoyed this. I was a touch disappointed that the Duke died, but one of our people didn't directly kill him. But that's just the like dark romance mafia reader in me that wants to see them take their revenge on him, but he still died, so it's fine. They just don't have his blood on their hands. But it was kind of an interesting situation, the way that it all kind of played out, and I was like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? This is crazy. And then Darius's Darius's old valet, who kind of became the butler, kind of stepped in, and it was kind of interesting because it kind of, I wouldn't say redeemed, but we got to see basically the moments of like, there's no excuse for how horrible the Duke treated Darius. But we get the kind of reasoning, or it's kind of implied why he started taking Phoria. And it's because one of the side effects of Phoria is you see ghosts, whether you actually are seeing ghosts or it's just hallucinations. I'm not 100% sure on, but he basically became addicted to this because he was still seeing Darius's mother, and he really did love her, and her death just destroyed him. And the reasoning behind him hating on Darius so much is when she was dying, they both were in the room, but she made a point to say that she loved Darius at the end, and you know, she had what little energy she could, and she chose him over her second husband. And so he just harbors hate for him because he feels like Darius took that final moment from him, from his mom. And I understand that that's what drove him to start being a horrible person, but I do not forgive it. And maybe this is part of my own issues, is I have had issues with one side of my family. If you've seen my other videos, you can probably tell. But where the new significant other is higher above me and my brother and sister. And I don't know. I just don't understand how you can't choose your children. Like, the way that I see parenting and the way that I feel like I would be a parent is that child, like, your child is it. You may love your spouse and they may be your true love, soulmate, whatever you want to call it. But you try to protect your kids, and I can see how it can get twisted, but it really bothers me when there's situations like this. And no, I'm not forgiving him because, yeah, she has one last moment. She's going to give it to her child. And it also kind of struck a chord with me. And here I go crying. I don't really talk about it too much, but I feel very grateful that the last words with my mom were very loving words. I mean, I was the one that found her the next morning when she passed, so that's a whole thing. But when I think back on that morning, I try to think back on that night before, and she had just had hip surgery, so, you know, she was on crutches and whatever, and I was helping her get to bed, and she kind of lost her balance, and when I caught her, she just kind of hugged me to stay standing, and then she, like, turned it into a joke, like, oh, I'm just gonna hug you, and then, you know, she just told me how much she loved me and everything, and then she went to bed, and it was just like, good night, I'll see you in the morning. And so I just feel so grateful that I had those last moments with her. Granted, I didn't know at the time they were my last moments, but so when we got to this scene, and this was a little bit different because you could tell that his mom was, like, passing away because she was so sick. So they knew that those were the last words, but it broke my heart for Darius. And he really struggled because before his mom passed, he saw the Duke as a good person. I also was kind of expecting that, let me get off the sad stuff here. I was also expecting that we would come to find out that he fudged the paperwork, because I was kind of getting hints, and maybe it was unintentionally, but that when his mother passed, she had changed the will so that his stepfather became the Duke. But also in the will wasn't just that he became the Duke, but that any other children he would have, like legitimate children with a second wife, would be in line for the dukedom before Darius. So it could potentially just pass out of his family. And I thought that was weird. But it doesn't matter because he died and he had no other children. So it gets reverted to Darius anyway. But I just want to know if was he using euphoria, or was he just kind of that little bit of smarmy when he knew she was passing? Or I don't know. So I have a little bit of question there. That's like my biggest thing, where I was like, I wish this was like explained away, or just we figured it out, because I can't see his mother doing, like, I can see his mother being like, it'll pass to the stepfather until Darius comes of age, or until he passes, but that Darius would still be the first in line before any other secondary children by this man who married into the dukedom. So he's not the bloodline of the dukedom. So that was the only kind of thing where I was just like, either that needed to not be there, and just that she willed the dukedom to him over Darius, so Darius just had to try to outlive him. And then the Duke could have then tried to make changes himself, but it was weird that it was specifically stated that that was in his mother's will, that any of the Duke's children with a future wife would come before Darius and mine. So that was really the only thing, but I still gave it 5 stars because I enjoyed it. It's definitely more slow burn romancy, but I felt really happy with where the romance ended up. And it was kind of a little hard because she is fake engaged to the Duke to try to figure out the Foria situation. And I'm very intrigued to pick up the next book. So the next book is the middle daughter. So Lakira is the youngest daughter, and the next book is Nia's book. And she is the one that's the dancer. So Lakira's the singer, Nia's the dancer, and then the oldest sister plays like a violin or something like that. But she kind of seems like she might be having something going on with this like pirate lord. And there was some hint on the Foria, how it was leaving the thief city, might be due to the pirate lord. So I feel like that's where we're going with the second book, and I'm very excited to read it. I think it's also available as a read and listen in KU, but I don't know when I'm going to pick it up, but hopefully soon. I'm very intrigued to see where it goes. So yeah, I loved it. Before I wrap up, there was something cool I wanted to talk about too. And I haven't returned it to KU yet because I wanted to go over this with you because I thought it was super cool. At the end of the book, there's an author's note. And she just kind of talks about like her inspiration for the book. And then she goes over a little bit of like kind of an appendix, kind of not. But she goes over her inspiration and the etymology for naming the different things. So like the title of the series and what the sisters are called in the underground realm are the Musai. And so like in this like little kind of appendix thing, she says a neologism inspired by the plural word muses. And she goes into where she got influences for the names and the surnames and the different names of areas. And so like Jabari, which is the city where the sisters and her father are the count. So the count and her sister, so that's where like they're the royal lineage. And so the city is called Jabari, and they refer to themselves as Jabari. But so like this says Adalor's capital city. The Swahili name Jabari, meaning brave one, is derived from the Arabic word Jabar, meaning ruler. So I just thought it was super cool because not only do we get like an appendix of like what these different things are, but how she came up with the names of them, which I thought was super cool. But you know, I'm a nerd like that. And yeah, I just thought it was super fun. So yeah, I have finally finished 3 new to me fantasy authors, and I'm kind of sad that it took me so long to get through them, but I'm happy, you know, with the results. I had 2 out of 3 authors that I really love, and I started 2 trilogies that I really want to continue. So yeah, if you're interested in any of these, or if you have any other fantasy recommendations for me based on what I talk about, I love fantasy romance, as you could probably tell, and I'm always looking for new fantasy authors. So yeah, leave those down below. Otherwise, if you'd like to just leave an emoji, leave me something magic related, so like crystal ball, wizard, whatever you'd like to leave. But yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you all very soon with another video.